Shares and the rand stay strong in a week of drama. The ALSI once again on a record high. Despite all the attention on the ISA, Ramaphosa, and Trump, U.S. standoff to gain political points at the news conference last Wednesday, as well as the don't want to cut the national government salary account, third national budget, financial markets in South Africa seem to react on the real issue of the US/SA negotiations, South Africa's promising inflation data and foreign investment interest, that pushed the rand/dollar exchange rate to a new record level for 2025 and the ALSI to a new all-time record. The ALSI closed Friday higher for the fourth consecutive week at an all-time high of 93,529. This is a weekly rise of 1% and now has gained 10.8% since the beginning of the year and 18% over the last year. Once again, this movement is in sharp contrast to equity prices in the US and Europe. The above bullish movement in equities underpins more favorable economic prospects for South Africa during 2025. Gold and platinum continuous upward movements, the inflation rate increasing only marginally from 2.7% in March 2025 to 2.8% in April, 7 consecutive months lower than the midpoint of 4.5%, and the decision by Treasury to increase the fuel levy by 16 and 15 cents per litre, without putting a burden on the motorist over the short run, all contributed to the positive sentiment on markets. As the over-recovering in the price of petrol currently stands at 19 cents per litre and 41 cents for diesel, with prospects for lower global oil prices and a stronger rand over the next 6 months. It seems that genuine issues that were talked to in the White House between President Trump and President Ramaphosa were favorable for South Africa. It is expected that the AGOA agreement will continue. President Trump will attend the G20 summit, and talks in boost bilateral trade and investment will continue. Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Park Stow said in an interview in Washington, "We are ready to negotiate on the offer submitted, and while we are negotiating, we are proposing that the US maintains the reciprocal duty at no more than 10%. Analysts are now starting to remodel the possible effects of more positive prospects for South Africa/US trade and investments on South Africa's economic growth rate and the rand/dollar exchange rate. This just after the Minister of Finance have downgraded the country's economic growth rate from 1.9% to 1.4% on the back of President Trump's tariff announcements on Liberty Day at the beginning of April. The Minister of Communications and Digital Technology Solly Molotsi announced in a policy directive the proposed relaxing of Black Economic Empowerment (BEE) policies in the ICT sector. This will give the green light for the billionaire Elon Musk Starlink to commence business in SA. This may pay the part for other foreign businesses towards direct foreign investments in other sectors in South Africa. Rand/dollar on its lowest level for 2025. On the foreign exchange market, the rand improved against the US dollars over the week by 22 cents to its strongest level this year of 17.88/dollar. Against the British pound, the rand depreciated by 16 cents to a 24.12/pound, and against the euro by 13 cents to a 20.24/euro. The stronger rand/dollar rate, lower fuel prices over the last 2 months, and the strong surge in the prices for gold, platinum and palladium are likely to keep the inflation rate below 3% till the next meeting of the MPC in June. A cut of 25 basis points in the repo rate by the MPC became more a certainty, with the odds of another 25 basis points cut within the next 6 months, also a growing possibility. Especially if further trade talks with the US lead to a stronger rand and precious metal prices continue to rise. US and European equities lower on tariff threats. On some global equity markets, prices dropped sharply after US President Donald Trump again fueled the trade war by warning to levy high tariffs on the EU and US and European equities lower on tariff threats. On some global equity markets, prices dropped sharply after US President Donald Trump again fueled the trade war by warning to levy high tariffs on the EU and smartphone giant Apple. In Europe, equity prices traded down 1.7%, The S&P 500 in the US lost 0.67% after the announcement, trading 1.9% down over the week. 1.1% sent in early trading. President Trump wants to introduce a 50% tax in June on all imports to the US from the EU, including on pharmaceuticals and luxury items. He also intends to impose a 25% tariff on Apple and Samsung on iPhones sold in the US but produced elsewhere. Prospects for this coming week. This coming week, domestic and foreign investors await the release of South Africa's producer price inflation rate for April to be released by Stasa on Wednesday. It is expected that the annual increase in the PPI will be 0.7%. This is higher than the annual producer inflation rate of 0.5% recorded for March 2025. The country's balance of trade numbers for April will be published on Thursday and the budget balance on Friday. Globally, the U.S. will release the Federal Reserve Open Market Commission (FOMC) minutes of their meeting in April. The reasons for keeping its bank rate unchanged will be revealed. Its second estimate of GDP economic growth rate will be announced on Thursday. The personal income and spending figures for April in the U.S. will be announced on Friday. Canada will release its GDP growth rate for Q1 2025 on Friday. Chris Harms is the consulting economist of Sequoia Capital Management and a senior lecturer at Stadio Higher Education.